I have this great honor today to be chairing this meetup series, fourth in the row. For today, before we officially start and before I introduce Robert, as previously, we would like to ask you for the permission to record this session. So if everybody is okay with that, let's just press recording, and I see it already there. So we will record only the main session, not the breakout rooms. Don't worry about that, because we want to keep the breakout rooms private and for some sort of networking and socializing, and don't worry about recording that part. So for today, we have our guest speaker today, Robert Wright, associate professor from Hong Kong Polytechnic University. Robert's background is business, so he teaches at the Department of Management and Marketing, right, Robert? So I think we have a great speaker for today who is also very active academically in a couple of editorial boards of academic journals devoted to management. Some of those are my favorite, like Academy of Management Learning and Education. Also, it's great that Robert is somebody who received a reward prize for his academic work in 2014 in, again, an academic journal, Journal of Management Studies. So I think we have a great speaker who actually combines and uses personal construct psychology in his work on management. That would be basically some introduction of Robert, and about the presentation for today. The title of the presentation is Using Playfulness as a Complement to Facilitate Constructive Alternativism. And Robert will play with us, and I think we can all embrace that playfulness for today's meetup, especially in the breakout rooms when we get the assignment from Robert. So let's hear something about Robert's framework and how we can use it, perhaps not only in business and management, but also in some other areas, as Robert will advise us when it comes to the tasks for the breakout sessions. So over to you, Robert.
Okay, thanks, Yelena. Appreciate it. Everyone, I'm just too excited. What we've done is we're going to do something a little bit different today. I have already, thanks to Yelena, we've uploaded the PowerPoint PDF as well as the actual PowerPoint version in your chat box. So if you all go to your chat box, you can see the actual PowerPoint. You can download it as I speak. I won't actually show the PowerPoint on our main screen as usual, so that we can get a little bit more interactive when I talk about these colorful things here. So feel free to go to the chat box and download the PowerPoint. We've also, in the chat box, put the exercise book for you so that you can use this during the breakout group. And the exercise book has got all the 7 dice and all the 6 sides of the 7 dice. So 7 dice, 6 sides. So there's 42 items here that you can download as a little workbook that you can randomly talk about during your breakout sessions. Yeah, so feel free to do that. And it's also great to see everybody as we're engaging in the conversation. So my presentation today is only 30 minutes. The first 10 minutes is really going to talk about the underlying philosophy of Kelly's personal construct theory, which is constructive alternativism. It's always a hard word to pronounce, but I wanted to position my session today regarding the playfulness grounded on Kelly's philosophical underpinning. I'll also position today's sharing in the context of the world that we live in today. Yeah. Once I've set the scene, I'll actually walk you through an example of how to use this and how I have used this in a real organizational context, trying to help real managers better deal with their unsolved problems, issues, and challenges. And once I've done that, we'll go off for a 25-minute breakout group. And hopefully, thanks to Harry and everyone, we're going to have a little bit larger groups so you can interact with each other. And then we'll come back for the plenary where Jeanette and I will help kick off the session for an open discussion. Is that all good, everyone? Thumbs up if it is. Aha, that's awesome. Now that's why we don't have the PowerPoint for today. We can see all the thumbs up. Now, I just wanted to say, if you have the PowerPoint in front of you, I have mine in front of me. PowerPoint number 3, it has a really interesting title, and it talks about the world as we have always known it, so obvious and still struggling. Yeah. There's a military terminology called VUCA. It comes from the US military, VUCA, and it just characterizes the type of world that we're living in today. The V is very volatile, the world is. The U is very uncertain. The C is, it's very complex. VUCA, and the letter A, it stands for ambiguous. Yeah. So given that type of world, very volatile, uncertain, complex, or you can take complicated and very ambiguous, and it's really going to breakneck speed. That is creating a lot of our own current taken for granted assumptions to be questioned about what works and what doesn't work. And as a result of this happening, we are constantly required to reevaluate our assumptions and then redefine and reinvent ourselves if we are not just able to survive, but to thrive in the type of world that we live in today. I want to briefly read out a beautiful quote that most of us may be familiar with from Heraclitus, the pre-Socratic Greek philosopher.
Heraclitus, stupid.
Who famously reminded us about the world and about ourselves, in that all is flux. Nothing is stationary. Everything gives way and nothing is fixed. No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and he is not the same man.
I'm in the rubber, right?
And what is really interesting is Heraclitus' student many years later said, you can't even go in the river once because the river is continually moving. And so this whole state of change it's been around since the year dot. And yet we always seem to be surprised when change happens to us. Sometimes the obvious, we're not too good at it. In fact, the answers to our problems are hidden in plain sight. Now, Kelly, as most of us know, said there are many alternative constructions available for the man, quote unquote, to be able to function in the world. So for example, if I was to say the opposite of A is B, but with Kelly's constructive alternativism, it's a bit like the opposite of A is all non-A. And suddenly, wow, it just opens up the constructions for you. Or if I give you a rhetorical mathematical problem, what is 5 plus 5? We all know there's only one answer to that. And we got locked into that answer. But if we reframe that problem and ask, what are any two numbers equal to 10? Let's just go around the room. What would be the answer? Andrea? Andrea's mic's not working, I think. Debbie, give me an answer. What are any two numbers equal to 10?
Yeah, 2 and 8.
Jenny?
10 and 0.
3 and 7.
Okay, John?
10 and none.
10 and none. Okay, awesome. Suddenly, magic happened. The alternative just opens up. What are any two numbers equal to 10? Kelly said, no one needs to paint himself into a corner. No one needs to be completely hemmed in by circumstances. No one needs to be a victim of his biography. Yeah, and that's, I guess, what he really meant by constructive alternativism. I'd like to give you a few very interesting quotes just to add to that. And some of you may not know, but George Kelly actually knew the Abraham Maslow, who invited him to come over to his university at one time. Maslow said this: if all we have is a hammer, all the world's problems are nails. And the great Socrates once said, a life left unexamined is a life not worth living. And one of my favorite quotes in personal construct psychology is Burr and Butt back in 1992, who said, the first step in reconstruction is to trade in some of our old questions for new ones. It's just mind-blowing stuff. Man can enslave himself with his own ideas and then win his freedom again by reconstruing his life. And Kelly really talked about, we're concerned with finding better ways to help a person reconstruct his life so that he need not be the victim of his past. So that's a beautiful backdrop, everybody. And I would like to now talk about this playfulness concept that I developed called the focused philosophy. It has its own 7 colorful dice, which I call the framework. And it is designed to open us to possible futures. It'll help us open up the alternatives. It enables man's search for meaning in a broken world. What the framework does, everybody, is, to use Vivian Burr and Trevor Butt's term, it's an invitation, and to use George Kelly's term, it's an invitation to adventure. The framework is not just a problem-solving tool. It's also a problem-setting tool. The framework is not just a thinking tool, it's also a thinking, a feeling, and acting tool. Just as Kelly said, they're all intertwined. And it's not just a creativity tool, it's also a tool that opens us to otherness, other forms of reasoning, other forms of logics, other forms of explanations, and to other ways of knowing. And it's not just a learning tool, because this framework also is about unlearning. You know, back in 2009, about 10 years ago, I was teaching a group of final year students. These were year 3 final year undergrads. And I was trying to create a heated conversation, a hothouse situation with Socratic dialogue. And I looked to the right of the room and I said, Shirley, what do you think? Shirley pauses for a while and then says, I don't know, Professor. And I thought, you know, this is no good. This is a final year undergraduate course, and this is what she's saying. I said, okay, let me look at the left-hand side of the room. And I said, Tom, what do you think? And Tom pauses for even longer and says, I agree with Shirley. So I said, come on, guys, you can't do this. Your final years, you're about to graduate. So I can vividly visualize what I did at the end of that class 10 years ago, 2009. I bolted into my dean's office and I said, boss, we've got a problem. These guys are final semester, final year, and they're about to graduate. And these are the answers they're giving me. Give me your permission to survey the entire school, and let's see if we can help those left behind. So we did a survey, and you talk about world-class research. I did a survey with one question. It was a one-question survey. And the question was, what's one thing our students need to do? If they did that one thing, it would take their learning to a whole new level. What is it? We surveyed faculty with the same question. We surveyed alumni. We had focus group with my MBAs, which was final subject, final year of their 2-year program, average 15 years work experience, daytime managers, evening master students. And we even had one-on-one with senior executives who came as guest speakers. We came up with a total of 400 plus answers, got a couple of doctoral students, type into Excel, cut, paste, to see if any emerging themes would come up. Lo and behold, 7 buckets emerged. And in one bucket, I had like 97 things, all basically saying the same thing. And in another bucket, 65 items, all basically saying the same thing. So we go, okay, well, why don't we label these buckets? We label, and then we started to shuffle the buckets around. There's too many buckets. There's 7 buckets here. So why don't we create an acronym? And in 2009, everybody, the FOCUSED, the focused philosophy, was born. I pilot run it with my students for 5 academic semesters. I forced all my students, look, I'm going to evaluate you on 7 things. That's it. Nothing else. That's it. That's how I'm going to evaluate you. And in 2012, I operationalized the philosophy and created my own paper dice so that the students can have a touch and feel of the philosophy. So now I'm going to very briefly tell you what the FOCUSED stands for before we walk you through an example. And they're all color-coded. It's a bit like Ed DeBono's 6 Thinking Hats. They're all color-coded. F is the yellow dice. The psychology of yellow is bright. It's fresh. So every morning the sun comes up, it's a fresh new day. F stands for a fresh perspective. Yeah? Awesome, Deb. Thank you, Debbie. And then we've got the O dice. O is orange, and it stands for think, feel, and act as if. It's like Vahinga's philosophy of as if. As if you're the owner manager. You own this. Yeah. C is the blue color, and it's a connected thinking. It's blue ocean. So C stands for connected thinking. So when you're dealing with really tough, unsolved problem issues and challenges, you want to be connecting ideas from yesterday to today, from this discipline to that discipline. So what you did before, what you did now. So C is connected thinking. Any idea what the U would stand for? Anyone? It's the red color. U stands for, just yell it out if you got the answer.
Urgency.
Awesome, Antonio. Thank you so much. 10 points. So U is sense of urgency. So when we're dealing with really tough, unsolved problem issues and challenges, we need to have a sense of urgency, hence the red color. The psychology of purple means warm, togetherness. So FOCUS stands for team spirit. You really can't solve problems by yourself these days because the VUCA world is too complex. Yeah, so it's team spirit. We're almost there. E is the engage dice. It's green. It's a bit like if you want a beautiful garden, what must you do? Jenny, you want to give it a try? And then Mary can help.
I already read what you put. It's about spending time in your garden.
Absolutely. Somebody once asked Albert Einstein, how can you solve all these problems? We're trying to do the same thing. And Albert Einstein replied, oh, I spend more time with my problems. Got it. E is engage. And last but not least, this is the indigo color. And the psychology of indigo means introspective, looking deep into ourselves. And D is deliberate practice. You do something, take a step back, you think about it, get some feedback, think about that feedback, do it again, and you got better. Take another step back, get some feedback, think about that feedback, do it again, and you got better. D is deliberate practice. So what I've been doing, everybody, is with these 7 colorful dice, I've been able to apply it into 8 different disciplines in the business field, in computing, in design, in engineering, in fashion, in hotel, in law, and in medicine. We even presented this at Harvard School of Dental Medicine, Harvard Business School. We've gone into Oxford and Cambridge with this to help students and faculty to open up alternatives when they're dealing with really tough unsolved problem issues and challenges, even research. So I want to walk you through a typical unsolved problem that I've used, and I'll show you how it's done in the time we have remaining before we do the breakout. We went into a listed company for their strategy away day. And we had the entire board and top management team and the N-1, all their subordinate, a total of 50 people for the strategy away day. And the key question they wanted to deal with was this. And I'll read it from slide 12. We have been in business for the past 30 years. In order to survive and thrive in the next 3 years, what needs to be done to better equip our people with new ways of thinking and new ways of doing to help drive and innovate change to improve the business? Yeah, so that was the core question for discussion in the company's strategy away day. And we broke people up into groups, and they had a set of these guys right in front of them. What we do, we've got the unsolved problem. The second thing we do is we're going to roll these dice, and we're going to pick them up randomly, depending on your choice. And then we're going to see, can it open up the alternative, constructive alternativism for these executives so that they can move forward. So I'm going to just pick up the U dice. And the U dice here says this. Harry, you want to help me out here?
So it's who are our new customers, competitors for anybody?
Hang on, yeah. Took me a while to get to the mute.
Yeah. So who are our new customers and new competitors, given the unsolved problem that they were discussing? Now, this is not a normal question, because normally organizers, even patients, are always talking about current people. They're not talking about the new customers or new competitors. And that just opened up the conversation for them. An example of the O dice. Nicola, can you give me a hand here with the O dice?
What are the current taken for granted assumptions and question your assumptions?
Awesome. Now, this is not a normal question executives ask. Even we as individuals ask. You know, sometimes we're living on false assumptions about how they do business. And why are they winning and why are they not winning? So just that question alone, and by the way, I'm just showing you one example of the 6 sides when you roll it. So talking about assumptions, albeit as a company executive, as a research student, or even as a patient, well, why do you have this assumption? Let's talk about it. Pam?
Best ideas come from outside of your field.
So when we rolled it, this one came up. Thanks so much, Pam. So the company wanted to move forward for the next 3 years. They were a retail listed company, a global business, but they just always thought about retail. But this item on the C die says connected thinking. Best ideas do come from outside of your field. And so they were forced to look outside and discuss, well, what are people doing in the manufacturing industry, in the toy industry, in the computing industry? And that just opened up the alternatives for them in what they should be doing and what they are not doing. Gina, red dice.
Sometimes we need to let go.
Awesome. And what we found out in the executive discussion was we need to let go of some of our meetings, everybody. We got meetings after meeting. Most of them are not useful. So what an amazing question that not just at the company level, but also at the individual level. When you've got a sense of urgency to deal with it, we got to let go sometime. Yeah. And only when we let go, we become free. S is the team spirit. And I guess, okay, I'll read it. My turn to read it. This one says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. This is an African saying. If I've got a problem, most of my life I was dealing with them by myself. And it's no wonder I wasn't progressing as much as I should be, being and becoming a better Robert. But then when I started bringing other people involved, I went further in my problem solving and problem setting. Team spirit. Almost done. E-dice. Any volunteers for the E-dice? No rush. Okay, thank you. Martin?
Yes. Don't be afraid to experiment.
Awesome.
Yes.
So this company was not experimenting enough. They've been around for 30 years. They started to talk about things that they were afraid to experiment. Well, experiment with what, Robert? Well, experiment with a different type of clothing design. Experiment with different type of marketing strategy. Experiment with how we develop our people inside the company. Experiment with how we do experiment. When we do that, we're more engaged. Last but not least, this is the mind-blowing question, Peter, D-dice.
What are we doing now that we should, sorry, I can't see the rest of it. What are we doing now that we should up a bit not be doing?
Absolutely. And then Peter, why don't you help me read the other side?
What are we not doing that we should be doing?
And this one again.
What are we doing now that we should not be doing?
These are mind-blowing questions, and they're not normal. And so when the managers started talking about, well, what are we doing now that we should not be doing if we want to go further for the next 3-year company strategy? And the same question can be asked for us as individuals. Well, what are we not doing that we should be doing if we want to be happier people? Yeah, and the vice versa question as well. And so when we roll these dice again and again and again, the alternatives just started opening up. It was just mind-blowing stuff. How am I doing, Yelena?
I think we have Harry says 4 minutes.
Okay, awesome. Then I can do even more. And I must apologize if you are colorblind, but at least I have labeled them F for fresh perspective and C for connected thinking. The beauty about the focus framework is that you don't need to start in order from F all the way to D. Depending on your situation, depending on the human condition, the predicament that you're dealing with will determine which is your point of entry. So for example, we're trying to solve this problem and I don't feel really involved with the problem. I feel very disconnected. So which color do we dive into first, everyone? I don't feel very connected. I don't feel very engaged. It's the green dice, yeah? So that's going to be a point of entry, and then you'll pick it up, you read it, you think about it, and discuss. That's your point of entry from which it becomes your point of departure. Then you can pick up the blue dice, or the D dice, or the yellow dice. And then the conversation will go on and on until you've opened up enough alternatives to find your way out of your predicament. There are other items on the dice, for example, in my time that's remaining. Michael, what about, give us a try, sir.
What would happen if you did the opposite?
Absolutely. I would be talking to these company directors and they say, the entire strategy away day meeting was all about cut costs and about making profit. I said, what would happen if you did the opposite? You weren't talking about profits and cutting costs, but you would be talking about the value of your product to your people, for example. And it was a mind-blowing experience for them all. And even with my own students, as you all know, students always leave their assignments late. So I said, what would happen if you do the opposite? And if you did the assignment early? And then I would go around the room. I said, what would happen if you did start early? Oh, well, Robert, we will have more time to think. What else would happen? Oh, well, Robert, we will have a better understanding about the problem that you've given us. What else would happen? Oh, we would have more time to go deeper into the problem to come up with better ways of solving it. I said, hallelujah. Pick up another one, a D dice. This is powerful. And it says, are we measuring the right things? And when you ask people, you want to marry somebody, okay, well, how do you measure somebody? Who is your what's the characteristic of a Mr. Right? Well, he's got to be rich, he's got to be handsome, and he's got to always be at my beck and call, for example. But are we measuring the right things here in finding Mr. Right or Miss Right? Maybe some of our measures are out of date or that they're not appropriate. And just by, this is a deliberate practice dice. Another one on the U dice is, what if tomorrow never comes? Well, what if tomorrow never comes, senior executives? How are you going to run your company now? Just like Kelly talked, it's all inherent in Kelly's work. It's all about time. And by answering this question, well, what if tomorrow never comes? How are you going to solve your problems? Are you just going to sit around and say, well, I don't care? No, that's not what we're saying here. How do you improve your life? How can you make the world a better place? Okay, I'm going to stop there, guys. And I'm going to let you know what I would like you to do in your breakout groups. And again, the breakout groups will be a little bit larger. So it's going to be awesome. A little bit larger so that we can practice what we're preaching with constructive alternativism. Yeah. Go to your chat box on the Zoom. In the chat box at the very, very first item, you can download a link that will give you access to the exercise workbook. It's a PDF, or you can do an e-version. You can open it, and then immediately you can see the yellow dice, the blue dice, the red dice. Yeah. And then during your breakout group discussion, I want you to think about what are your thoughts and reflections on how the focus framework can be used to improve your practice? How do you think it can be used in your practice? So that should be a really exciting conversation.
Robert,
yes,
could you just say which of that? There's quite a lot of things in the chat.
It's the very top one. It's the very first one that. Yeah, okay. It's the very first one that Yelena posted before everybody came into the room. So have a look at that e-link, download the PDF, and you will have access to all the 42 items of the 7 dice. And just pick anyone randomly and see, well, how can I use this one? Look for examples. And I think it's from the red dice. How can looking for example help me open up the alternatives to my unsolved problem, issues, or challenges? Yeah. Okay, away you go, guys. And then we'll come back to the plenary.
Some very interesting responses to that one key question from a variety of people involved in education. Are the items on the faces of the dice taken from the responses that you had, which you then categorized according to the letters of, to the categories on the dice?
Okay, it's a brilliant question, Debbie. Thank you so much for asking before we go out for the break. We originally dealt with over 400, to cut a long story short, we originally dealt with over 400 raw answers, and we used the original categorization. over 5 academic semesters and over a 2-3 year period, we were given feedback, and then we replaced some of the raw items with a more articulate item, so it's better and more obvious for people, and keeping to the true spirit of the original meaning of the raw item.
Let's perhaps now pause yes. Let's now perhaps pause with the presentation, and I'm sure that we will be having plenty of questions after the breakouts. So Mike, if the breakout rooms are prepared, perhaps.
Wonderful that you're coming back, and I hope you had a good time discussing and thinking about what Robert told us. And yeah, I just want to invite you to share whatever you would like to share, your thought, your insights, something interesting you discussed, maybe also questions to Robert or
yeah, I'm more than happy to answer them, guys, because at the end of the day, you know, we're all busy people. Who's not busy? So let's make it count. And if I can help in any way, how can we use this for our own practice, to improve our own practice? And by the way, Jeanette, I haven't told everyone, but we've introduced this to all university level counselors at my university. These are counselors who are dealing with students' mental issues. And every counselor has this, and in one way or another, in their own way, they're actually using this as playful, because mental issues is quite a serious thing. Why does it have to be serious? We can be counterintuitive and make it more enjoyable, and at the same time help these people open up their alternatives and find their way out of the human condition.
Yeah, in that sense. So we are curious about all the alternative uses, what you thought about, in what kind of setting you could, or you had some ideas how to use it.
May I be the teacher with respect to everybody? I want a lot of class contribution here, guys. Help me out. Amir, what do you think, sir?
Robert, can I say there was a question in our group from Sarah?
Okay, well, let Amir go first, because he was just about to, and then we go to Sarah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Robert, are you talking to me?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Yes, you did. But I just want to be sure. In our discussion group, we basically discussed about randomly picked 3 dice, and we talked about the orange one, we talked about the purple one, and we talked about how we can look at somebody else's examples to figure out a way. Martin actually shared his example of one of the problems that he was dealing with a website development, and that was very intriguing. And then we also discussed about how alternative constructivism is so much applied in today's world of COVID-19. So there are a lot of people who are still not doing what they're supposed to do, and how to deal with that alternative constructivism. So.
Awesome, interesting. Thank you for that. Anyone else?
One thing that came up at the very end of our group was how you would, or there may be lots of different ways, but what is the most useful way you found of running such a session with a group of people, perhaps who have shared objectives or are in the same department of an organization, whatever? You know, how would you actually organize such a session?
Yeah, it's a great question, Debbie. Thank you for that. I think, like all things in life, it comes in threes, the power of 3. It's always good to get people mentally prepared for a session. By that, I mean a week before, 2 weeks before, at least they have some time to think about the types of unsolved problem issues and challenges we will be discussing on the day. So let them think about it. Let them have an idea of, and by the way, everybody, have you noticed there are 7 colors? Immediately, it will tell you that there are 7 ways that you must use to deal with a complex unsolved problem. There's 7 ways, right? So we can't just approach it from, we've had meetings where senior executives say, oh, Robert, we've used your dice, we've used 3 of them and we've solved our problem. The other 4, we can throw them away. I said, no, just pick up 1 more and see what happened. Oh, the solution got better. And pick up another one. So you got to use all 7 so that you got, bang, you got peripheral vision of that unsolved problem. So Debbie, number 1, mental preparation of the type of problem we will discuss on the day. Let them think about FOCUSED just briefly before they come. On the day, we give a quick revision about what is FOCUSED. We walk them through 1 example using the dice. They get a touch and feel. We open up the discussion, and then we put them into breakout groups. Okay, on the screen, everybody, here is the second unsolved problem that you guys, unsolved problem, issue, or challenge you said you had. Okay, go into your breakout groups. You've got a set of dice in the middle of the room, or you've got your exercise book or whatever. Roll them and open up the discussion. And then you can take down your notes in the exercise booklet. The number 3, the power of 3 is, like anything in life, if you're going to take it seriously, what happens after the session? There must be some accountability, some transfer of learning back to the workplace. So, and that provides a nice little circle to the framing of whatever it is that you want to discuss, albeit a student project supervision, albeit a clinical patient issue, or like in a company situation where they're trying to find their way out of competition so that they can beat the competition. So a bit of preparation, come in. We got name tags everywhere, just like we can see, I can see Posetto's name, I can see John's name, I can see Sally's name. Let's just open it up, guys, because we're playing to win here. And then afterwards, there must be some accountability. Where is the follow through?
Thank you, Robert. Maybe we can also have some insights also from people who don't really necessarily work in business, but also maybe in other areas. What do you think about? So is there something you could transfer to your context?
Peter's got his mic on. Was it Peter?
Well, one of the things we talked about, I was saying it's interesting that most of Kelly has been written from a clinical perspective, so that management people have to almost adapt it. And as a clinician or an ex-clinician, I was having the reverse experience of a management tool and trying to adapt it to clinical work. I struggled a bit with using it individually, but I could really see it working with couples, where you sat down with a couple and said, what's your problem? And watch and see let's throw the die and see what happens.
And then we were saying the couples can start with the E dice and say, what story will you tell?
Exactly, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you, Peter.
Gina, what do you think? Gina?
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, right. Okay. I can see that it would be good in business, but I wasn't quite sure using the.
Even your dog is excited and want to play with the dice.
Yeah, she's really excited. Sorry about that. That it may be harder in other contexts because of the language.
Mm-hmm.
And that they may need to put their language on or their way of seeing, mm-hmm. which might be more doing things rather than the more abstract. And mm-hmm. I personally had a problem with the colors because some colors I wasn't very, I didn't like. And immediately that made me feel I don't like that one.
That's interesting, Gina, because don't forget, this is the color of the rainbow. These are the primary colors.
In my book, they're not quite like that.
Ah, interesting.
So, so that made a difference to how I construed using them.
Okay.
But I think I'm a bit more alternative in how I saw them. I also quite fancied the idea of building them into a tower or something and then using them that way. So I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you, Gina. Anyone else like to share? Michael, please.
I'd just been saying, Robert, sorry, I did talk over someone there, sorry.
Judith.
I was just saying I like the idea, a bit like Kelly, using the third person in self-characterizations, that it gives you the opportunity to talk without making yourself too vulnerable. It facilitates that kind of conversation without you having to say, I think, or I believe. You can talk about that more general, that kind of third way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's a brilliant insight, actually. We had a discussion group where, on a similar tone, if you're in a meeting with the boss, or if you're meeting with the client, it's actually not the expert asking you the question. It's not the big boss asking you the question. It's the dice asking you the question. So people don't feel on the defensive, because it's these colorful dice that's prompting the questions, comment, or statements. Michael.
Yes, I was actually going to make a comment about the playfulness, about how it would seem to make people feel more safe and open. It seems to me. So, and that's a good thing. So often we're so linear and structured, and I can imagine if I were doing that, I might feel, oh my goodness, this is too playful. It's not systematic enough. When that happens, how do you deal with that?
Wow, that's a mind-blowing question. As a matter of fact, everyone, great question. This is a highly structured framework to help you deal with your unstructured problem, issues, or challenges, because there's an FOCUSED in that framework, and each dice has 6 items to it that sort of covers 4 corners of the wall. 4 corners of the wall. The beauty about playfulness is, like all games, there are rules to the game. With football, with boxing, with tennis, with golf, there are rules to the game. As to how you play the game, it's where the real spark is. So yes, I just dropped mine, and you can see mine. I just dropped it. I can roll it. There is that element of playfulness, but also anticipation. Which side is gonna come up? And this one here, if you can read that one, Rachel.
When we see things differently, we see different things.
Wow, and then suddenly, okay, well, let's look at our problem from a different point of view here. A quick example could be, I used to think my students, when they come in late to class and they just plonk their bag with big noise and just sit down with a long face, I thought these were problem students. But then when I see them differently, I saw very different things. These were not problem students. These were students with problems. This guy's unhappy because mom and dad are, splitting up, or they got a family member in hospital, just came out of hospital and got to rush to school and haven't done the homework. So once I understood that, it changed my entire approach to how I teach my students. When we see things differently, we see different things. And it's just mind-blowing. How are we doing, guys? Rachel, you got a big smile on your face. That's a good sign.
Yeah, I this morning was very busy, even though they've
Oh
not.
my goodness! Can you hold them up again?
Yeah, they've not printed out in the correct colours, but nevertheless, they have the questions
Well,
on.
they
And I know
must be the correct colors. That was the whole point. To make sure you can throw them away and use the right colors, because just like the 6 thinking hats with Ed De Bono, certain hats, there was a reason for certain color. But I'm so happy you did it, because you are now, Rachel, you are literally practicing what we preach.
we're there. Yeah, and I've thrown them up a few times this morning over different things, and I think it might be useful to take back to the team that I work in, that I've got several seemingly unsolvable problems at the moment about caseloads and about I work in a community mental health team, and how we think differently, because we think with a very limited set of questions.
Absolutely. And, later on, everybody, if you look at slide number 11 on my PowerPoint, it shows pictures of 8 subject matter experts. We've finished doing 8 MOOCs, Mass Open Online Courses. They are short courses. Beginning of next year, we're going to upload it on the Harvard MIT edX platform and on Coursera, covering 8 different disciplines on demonstrating how the focus framework, not just used in the business field, but also in computing, in design, in engineering, in fashion, in hotel, in law, and in medicine. So it's a bit like a SWOT analysis, SWOT, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That tool is not just for business. That tool you can use in nursing. That tool you can use in the military. Even the SWAT team, SWAT, Special Weapons and Tactics, the elite police team, even they do the SWOT analysis. So I guess the focus framework is somewhat like a picture frame, and you put what picture you want to put to help you guide your thinking, your feeling, and your acting. Awesome.
And I could also imagine, so if somebody works in a different field, so like Gina said, so it's more the question how to formulate also some questions. This might really be different in some fields. So it's maybe not, so the formulation of the whole questions might be relevant to where you work.
That's spot on, Jeanette. The formulation of your question. So we got all in the F dice, fresh perspective, all the positive RE words, Mm-hmm. So that it's not just a problem solving tool, it's also a problem setting tool. Like I did earlier, I'll give you a rhetorical maths problem, 5 + 5. Okay, Robert, it's a no-brainer. I don't need to think. Okay, let me reframe that maths problem and ask you, what are any 2 numbers equal to 10? And then bang, constructive alternativism, positive RE words. Even the great Socrates says a life left unexamined, we're re-examining, is a life not worth living.
I really liked you saying that you worked in your university with your student support.
Yes.
I had a conversation this morning with somebody, and we were talking about that we should be a trauma-informed university, the awareness of the adverse childhood experiences. But sometimes that's okay and people can understand that, but they don't know what to do with it. And I suppose I found that with all of PCP, with the exercises, which actually they give you tools to do something, to give a structure. And then obviously the person you're working with provides all the content. But I think that's a really nice tool that actually would allow people in those roles to actually put into practice that whole understanding of trauma-informed, and students then not being stuck, not feeling hopeless, but feeling there's another way and there's hope. So I think that's really interesting. So thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Gina, you got your microphone on. Did you want to say something?
Well, I was just thinking it is a way of, it is a tool that is very adaptable, isn't it? that when you start thinking about it, it can be used in hundreds of different ways, which is brilliant.
I think so, yeah. See, again, you know, as I said to a room full of senior executives for the Hong Kong Institute of Directors at a full house, I said to them when I had, at that time, I only had the paper version because I didn't get any funding because the Hong Kong government gave me $9.7 million to scale this up. Unbelievable. You talk about research funding. It's like you pinch me and I can't feel it. I'm already in heaven. So I said to a room full of senior executives, look, everybody, I cannot promise you if you use these 7 colorful dice called the focus framework, I can't promise that it will help solve your unsolved problem, issues, or challenges. But I can promise if you use this framework, it's going to bang, it's going to open up the alternatives for you. That was the magic. It's going to open up the alternatives for you.
And then there's no stopping them.
That's right. And I think once, you know, I'm religious, but I'm not shoving religion down people's throat, but I will mention it if it's a teachable moment. It's a bit like in the Bible when they say, you know, you give a man a fish and you feed him a day. You teach him to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. You teach people a framework that is playful, that is not put you on the back foot, on the defensive. It's playful. It gives you a way of thinking. As I said in the title, using playfulness as a complement to facilitate constructive alternativism. And I think we can do a great service for people to get them out of their predicament.
So,
Just
Robert,
to give
may
them
I ask
some
you a question?
I'm sorry?
Sorry, I said just to give them some hope.
Absolutely, yeah. And give them a little bit of confidence. You know, my mother always said, I'm not a smart guy, but mum taught me through encouragement. Robert, you are so good. Robert, you're so smart. Can you help me with this? Because you've got great ideas, Robert. And sooner or later, everybody, this is what happened. Judith, could you help me read that one?
You have to believe you can.
Absolutely. You know, we've all heard it in the workplace. They always say, when I see it, I'll believe it. But the opposite is just as compelling. When I believe it, I will see it. And that's mind-blowing. It just changes
Robert,
the entire dynamics of thinking. Sorry.
Robert, what do you think? Should we ask some more people to just share their ideas?
Please,
so
sorry.
that we have really a whole plenary. So is there somebody else also with some other ideas or insights or interesting discussions in your groups?
Excuse me.
Just make a quick comment, which was in talking to Robert, one of my favorite books on therapy is a book called The Dice Man by a guy called Luke Reinhardt. And I started to think of Robert as the Dice Man Mark II.
Okay. Fortune, I think you would like to say something, right?
I wanted to bring Robert a question from our group. And that is, after you have used the dice, say, for example, the green dice that he showed, tell us a story. We're going to get various constructs that are going to emerge from any person's or marital couples narrative. And what then specifically, tools specific to Kelly then use? Would we then do a rep grid? Would we look for ladders? Would we look for the superordinate concepts? Once we have the narrative or the output from this dice, then how can we actually use the techniques of Kelly to gain the kind of insight that we hope to for PCP?
Yeah, that's a good question, Fortune. Thank you. You know, I don't have the answers for everything, but I would say it's up to the clinician, it's up to the user of the tool as to how they want to take it further. Given the narrative that you elicit from the storytelling, that in itself gives you an entire repertoire of construct within the storytelling. And from that storytelling, you can pluck out common themes that can be used as possible elements. Some good, some not so good, and a preferred element that was plucked out from the storytelling. And then you could elicit bipolar constructs of how people make sense of that story. That could be one example, I guess. But the fact remains that what story will you tell from the green dice? Then you start to hear the couples or the family members tell their own story. And a lot of the time we may not have known that was the way she told her story, because we're in the same situation, but I told a very different story. And I think that should be celebrated.
Mm-hmm. So similarities and differences, right? Martin.
Absolutely, yeah. Jeanette, you've done your homework here. The green dice here says, I can read this. It says, is that clear, John? Can you hear that, John? Read that clearly?
Hi, Carl. It took me a while to unmute. Look for similarities and differences, sameness, otherness, and their interrelationships.
Awesome. So when we are really being engaged with our unsolved problem, issues, and challenges, here is one approach that we can use to look at the similarities and differences in the story. Which are the same, which bits are different, what's the relation? This is a higher level thinking, but it's actually not high level. We did this when we were in primary school. Our primary school teacher says, compare and contrast. Here are two pictures exactly the same. There are 5 things that are very different. The guy here is wearing a hat. The guy here is not wearing a hat. Pick out the differences. So we did that when we were kids. Jeanette.
Yeah. I think Martin wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was wondering about when you have a group of managers and you want to engage them in doing this. I was wondering about, do you have to go through these descriptions that are in the handout? For instance, when we see things differently, we see different things, then there's explanation. Try to look at the unsolved problem from a different angle and perspective. So I read through this yesterday, so I'm aware of what this entails. So I'm wondering about, do you have to spend some time helping them to get into this so they will feel comfortable about doing this? Because if you only see that what is written on the dice, you might feel unclear about things. So
of course, great point, Martin. And that's why we, after many years, 10 years doing this, on the 8th year, having watched so many students do exercises with the dice, so many MBAs, so many managers and board members, they were all scribbling notes on pieces of paper or napkins. I said, no, that can't be right. Let me provide them a structured way to take notes using the dice. And hence, when they see the item, they can use this as this comes hand in hand. The shirt comes with the tie.
Okay, so you show them this booklet first, maybe read through it maybe for 10, 15 minutes, so you will not start.
No. As Debbie had asked, that's too sudden. It's a bit like 10, 15 minutes later, and suddenly somebody says, okay, Martin, play the piano. And I haven't prepared for this. So the 10, 15 minutes really 1 or 2 weeks before the actual event. And they can skim through it, but we will walk them through on the day. But they need to be mentally prepared, like all things, before they actually do it.
So we give them the booklet in advance, isn't it?
Yeah, they can download the e-version or the PDF version. The e-version, you can save it as a different file name on your PC. You can start typing away. You can use it 1,000,001 times.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
should not
okay.
be. I can imagine that it would not be I mean, it would not be advantageous just to given that just instantly and with no preparation. That would not
Yeah,
be a good idea.
I did used to do that because originally people were saying, Robert, we're too busy. Let's just do the session. Let's go for it. But that was very short term because that was not looking for long-term change.
All right.
Yeah, so
Okay.
like all things in
Thank
life,
you.
if we've got a problem, let's get serious about it. Prepare before, during, after.
Yeah, great.
Robert, so sorry to more or less have to interrupt you. So we have only 5 more minutes for just ending and some announcement. Thank you all for sharing your ideas and for being with us and just listening and being together. So I will send over to Jelena.
Thank you, Jeanette. And thank you, Robert.
Jelena, before we finish, may I just finish off with my last slide because it's going to be very important.
Okay, please do.
Okay. This is a quote from George Kelly, 1955. This is my last slide. It is not events themselves which influence or mold people, torment or terrify them, or make them deliriously happy. It is the meaning with which these events are invested by the individual, which is the potent ingredient. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Robert, for the inspiring session, and thank you all for taking part today. I think Robert's presentation reminded us of how we might see divergent thinking outside of constructivist psychology, of course, as propositional construing, and how it has various implications, as we saw in different contexts, not only in business one, as Robert today was talking about, but also in some other. So thanks a lot for being with us today.